Hello guys, I'm Mario the Artisan Rogue. So this is the last video I'm doing for this year, for this decade. Isn't that kind of trippy? It's going to be 2020 in like another 26, 24 hours, something like that. And I guess I wanted to go ahead and film this right now. And it's, you know what, this is super, super low key. It's just sort of it's more of a recording for myself, but just kind of going over some things and giving some thoughts on stuff that I had gone through over the year. So it's not like the most grandiose year in review, and it's a pretty simple, pretty quick video. I can't take too long anyway because I was already fighting my cat for this chair, and she's not too pleased at the moment. Okay, I guess the biggest thing I can start off with, artwork. And of course, made some notes here so I wouldn't be stumbling over my words as I'm trying to make this video. So the first thing that kind of hit me was, I think I did okay with art. Saying that I did okay is kind of I'm going to fail with words on some of this, and I apologize ahead of time. So essentially, I feel that I did end up creating quite a bit of work. I was surprised because when I was going back through my files on my computer, ever since I had started really embracing working digital this year, I was surprised by how much more prolific I had managed to be. And there was a lot more great stuff that I was really happy about, that I was working on, that seemed to resonate with people when I was able to get into a show, when I was able to do shows this year. And, that was nice. It was a good feeling to finally feel validated, I guess, in that respect. But there were definitely other things too. Like I mentioned, I didn't get as many shows as I would have liked. And I'll touch on that here in a minute, because I'd been going through this weird transitory sort of part of my life where less and less shows that I've been participating in. Some of it has been because of just, personal feelings about shows. Just, it's one of those weird things where when I do a show, I actually really do enjoy interacting with people, meeting people, talking, selling, of course. But there's also this whole thing that wears me out in general about worrying and hoping that what I'm creating, especially since I hadn't really been doing a whole bunch of, fan art based stuff, if that was going to connect with any audience, and how much reciprocation there really would be. And so that was absolutely a huge, worry that I had. So that kind of transitions into my outlook on life. And this is going to be a very general overview of this. But essentially, like anybody else out there, I mean, I've seen what so many of you have posted out there on Twitter, Facebook, all this other stuff, and, the ups and downs that everyone's gone through. And it seems like every year, the majority of people can't wait for the year that we're in to end, because next year is going to be that year. It's going to be my year. Okay. I've never really subscribed to that, because I have yet to have lived a year where there weren't ups and downs in it. I mean, it's what it is. Because of the fact that I felt like this year was definitely a weird one for me, and the fact that I felt like, I make no bones about the fact that I suffer from depression. Quite a bit, actually. More than I'm really comfortable talking about in a public forum. But one-on-one, I've told people about it and talked about it and that sort of thing. And I had a counselor for a long while, it's been about 5-6 months at least, maybe that long. I don't know. It seems like time is blurred on that. Now, to that point, recently I found out I no longer have that counselor. I don't know what happened yet. I still actually haven't looked into it. But that came to be kind of a blow, because on one side, you feel like, oh, hey, I'm starting to make some movement forward. And when you're making that movement forward, you're hoping that, hey, this person's going to be here at least for, maybe a year. I don't know. I didn't have a whole bunch of experience with this. And the simple fact that I had managed to connect with an individual who was really cool, and he was able to help me through a lot of things and help start getting me out of this art rut I was in, to find out that, well, now this same person that I had either confided stuff in with, or talked through things, or worked through some really crazy stuff, he's not there. I'm going to be reassigned somebody else. I've spoken to other people that have kind of had this sort of thing happen before. And, there's some things to worry about, and, other challenges that'll come with it. But ultimately, I'm hoping, and I have trust and some faith that, I can find another professional that'll be able to help me keep on the straight and narrow and kind of stay on the path of fixing things that I was on. At least I hope so. I mean, that would, No, well, I guess, yeah, that would be depressing if I didn't, which is really, man, there's really no outlet for that, is there? It's just, just adding to more depression if it doesn't work out. But because of that, one of the other things I'd noticed too was that at the beginning of the year, I had really gotten more and more annoyed with social media. And I think every single one of you watching this video can relate to that to some degree. Social media right now, especially, and you can certainly throw everything political in there, but you can also just look at it and say, look, we've become a society that emblematically, because of the fact that screens are essentially protecting us from the reality of getting punched in the mouth for some things that some people say, that has led to a wide berth of just chaotic and anonymous hate mongering. To that point, not everything is like that. Thankfully, a lot of people I interact with online, I know in real life, or I've met once or twice or something along that line. But either way, they're people that, for the most part, I can get along with. In fact, I can actually say I get along with just about everybody that I interact with online in real life. And because of that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all extremely liberal or extremely conservative. It doesn't mean that they're all Hispanic. It doesn't mean they're all white. It doesn't mean anything like that. In fact, it's quite a wide mix for me. But one thing I decided early on, and this was probably about March or April, was definitely this. And the wonderful thing was I had some friends, like, just being completely open and honest on this. I am fairly liberal to moderate in my ideology. I also tend to be one of those kind of people that I don't really like to argue online. I used to be. Oh my God, I used to just relish that. And for what? It would be wasted hours in the middle of the night. It, with some help from some friends of mine, a few that were way more liberal than I would ever be, and a few who are fairly conservative, just meeting up with them this year and talking to them in person and talking about things like religion and, oh man, a great conversation on mythology earlier this year, and just different things like that, that just kind of painted a new landscape for me on how I was going to approach doing social media. And the main reason for that was, especially in what I'm doing, like, I'm making videos, I post stuff online, and for a long time, I kind of would shy away from anything that was too polarizing. But one of the definite things that I had issues with was that I couldn't keep up with this avalanche of negativity or other things that was going on with social media. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take occasional breaks. I started actually timing how long I was staying online. I was really shocked because earlier this year I was trying to figure out, well, where am I going to find this time to do things? And I started cutting back on not only Netflix and Hulu and even my PC and video gaming and some other hobbies of mine. I just pulled back for a while because there were other things I had to get done, and I felt like I wasn't getting them done. Unfortunately, this huge well of depression and this weird aspect where I felt like I was stuck in a rut, and I still kind of feel that way, crept in, and it filled that absence that I was like, oh, well, now I've got some free time. And no scheduling software in the world was able to help me get through that. It drove me nuts. But I at least was able to look at the hours that I could see there, and I was journaling and I was writing them down. It didn't matter if I was at work or where in the world I was. I was keeping the most just minuscule myopic information about myself. And I felt like I was a case study. I really did feel like I was a lab rat. In the long run, it worked out for me because I was able to go, okay, I'm clearly making excuses for myself. I'm clearly not living up to my own expectations. And did I want to move forward with that? Not just simply into this next year of 2020. Man, that sounds so cool to say that out loud. So futuristic, so Jetson. It doesn't matter what the year is. It matters that I'm trying to make some motion forward to change for the better so that I'm not consistently looking back and going, I really didn't move that far from last year, whether that's creatively, emotionally, whatever I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. As a person in general, the whole scope, that's the weird part. Taking a break from social media certainly helped. Now, over the course of the year, yeah, there was, like I had mentioned earlier, some ups and downs and some different things that had happened. But one of the things that I started to And I don't know why. It's probably because of the fact that, of course, right around the holidays is around the time that I'm getting another year older. Now, I do not like, celebrate, or believe in birthdays. I never really have. When I intermixed it with the Halloween, Thanksgiving, kind of Christmas, New Year's sort of zone, bear in mind that for many, many years, I worked bars and I was around drunk people and people partying. And it seemed like for those 3 months, for years and years and years, it was stressful, exciting, insane. And I saw things I never thought I'd see in a million years sometimes. So, and just even thinking back to that is, I'll have to go into that much later. That's worthy of a whole nother sort of one of these things. The holiday seasons this year seemed a little bit more reserved. Now, I don't know if that's just in general, with other people, or if that was just me putting that on the overall holiday. Like everything from Halloween to, like Halloween especially. I always enjoy Halloween. And I'm not like one of those super Halloween, fanboys or anything else like that. I like it. I have always liked darker, creepier stuff, and I've always enjoyed that sort of aesthetic. But this was something more along the line where I just kind of sat back and just enjoyed it for what it was. I love the fact that, I was able to go out and do stuff, along with my nephews and stuff. That's great. That's fantastic. That was a wonderful thing. And then with Thanksgiving, and it's weird because especially with my parents, Thanksgiving and Christmas have kind of evolved into this thing where it's not even so much about the holidays. It's more like, look, can you just come and hang out for a while? And the older I'm getting and the more I'm focusing on that, it's more of that thing, to the point to where my father, this is something that even really his father carried forward. The aspect of gift giving has really just kind of been sequestered over to the side. It's just not really done. And I don't really, I don't have an issue with that. And I'll get into that here in a moment, because it is kind of an odd thing, being an artist and creating material things and hoping that people will buy them for gifts or whatever. It puts me in a weird sort of headspace with that. Even though I kind of had this weird feeling that I was pushing all that stuff, not to necessarily the back burner, but just it was there, but I wasn't really over the top celebrating it or getting into it. And I was noticing that other artists during this time were carrying through, like, hey, I've got this incredible Halloween sale. You wouldn't believe what I'm selling. And, tchotchkes and all this other stuff. And I just didn't do anything like that. And then Thanksgiving came along, and I even saw some people getting inventive with that. Now, I'm not making fun of anybody doing this. I saw plenty of you guys doing this, and that was brilliant. That was great. I loved it. And then right around the time that, like right at the beginning of December 1st, like in the early AM hours, I started seeing the first little inklings of people already starting to push really hard on their sales for the stuff they created. And that was wonderful. I really did appreciate it. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And I know I lost out on sales. I know I did, because I really didn't do anything. That was something that really messed me up, because for the first time, I wasn't really sitting there thinking, wow, I need to get this stuff sold. I need to get this out there. I need to get money in. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And it was a really weird headspace that I was in. And I didn't like it. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, why I relinquished those opportunities to make any money or to really be active or anything. And part and parcel, it was also having to do with the fact that, again, going back to what I said earlier, I was burned out on social media. I was also just feeling more withdrawn. I was going through my own depression. You start to compile all of those things up and compress them in with this other factor that I just felt meh about everything. And it was this horrible cocktail. It just was terrible. It also led to some things too where, like, yes, and as I had mentioned earlier, yeah, of course I had disillusionment with, like, world events, and then there was this weird thing, and I don't even remember what the catalyst was for this. I sincerely don't. But a while back, somebody had made this observation that right now, especially like when you take into consideration all of social media, to news and Netflix and just cable television to whatever, okay, to people just going live on Instagram, there was this incredible proliferation of information that is consistently being poured on you. I'm only adding to it right now. Who's actually listening? And of the things being said, how much is actually worthwhile? How much of it is just regurgitation or sensationalism or anything else that probably could have just been said between peers or friends or whatever and didn't necessarily need to be repeated? Now, that puts me in a weird conundrum because really, who gives a damn about what I have to say? I mean, I've got, I think now 80 subscribers, and I'm very appreciative for that. That's fantastic. I didn't even think I'd get to that point. That was never really the point of this channel. It was more something where it had begun as a record for myself, which is one of the reasons why I never really completely promote these videos. I'm not complaining. Please, nobody unsubscribe. The other thing that hit me too, that is going back even further into what I originally stated, was I started questioning things about being an artist. One of the things that hit me was that earlier when, you know, like when you go to shows and you're not in them, you start to look and think about what you're doing as an artist. Like, and I don't mean, well, I'm working in watercolor today and I'm going to do a pencil drawing tomorrow, or that's not what I'm talking about. The problem I had was, why am I creating? What reason do I have to create? And it started getting existential is what it started happening. Because to me, it's like, you know, and this is the weird thing. I normally can feel inspired when I go to a museum or an art show and I see all this stuff. But after a while, I started going, well, how many people want to see a drawing of Iron Man? How many people want to see another troll? How, you know, like, or a fantasy creature or a dragon? How many times do people want to see another version of Harry Potter? How many times do people want to see another robot? And I was even more frustrated because here's the messed up part about that. Even though I hit another zone of burnout, I felt guilty the entire time. And please share with me if you guys have felt this way. Although I'm burned out and I'm like, I don't want to draw any more stuff or anything else like that, which for a small, wonderful bit in October, I did manage to overcome that during Inktober, and I felt really prolific. But immediately after that was done, I started thinking to myself, okay, I'm just going to stop because I'm burned out. And I felt guilty, and I still feel guilty for not having created more. It's not because of the fact that I hadn't been trying to create more. So I guess what's the takeaway from all this? I'm hoping that if anybody, you know, has managed to stay through the video this long, I'm hoping that you guys will appreciate this little bit. It's okay to question why. It's okay to think. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to have these challenges. It's okay to feel like things are kind of falling down around you, because they very well might be. The change that you want has to come from within you. And I've struggled with that forever. I see plenty of people, even some of the most successful people, that do question, what am I doing? Is what I'm doing the right thing? Is this going to lead to an end result that I'm going to be even more happy with? You know, that's the big challenge. I mean, everyone can look back, and there's that old saying that looking back is 20/20. But I love the Megadeth take on it where it says, you know, yet looking back, it's still a bit fuzzy. I know that I have a lot of challenges to overcome. I've never really pretended that everything that I'm doing is going well. Many of you that have read my show reviews over the years in my blog or have talked to me in person, I'm very open about how things can go and how unsuccessful a lot of efforts I've done have been. There are some triumphs in there, and those are great, and I am very appreciative and very, very proud of things I've managed to accomplish. I can make all the excuses in the world. I can sit there and say, I don't have time to do something. I can sit there and say, you know, in another life, or coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's much more proactive to look at what I have and think about the things that will lead to me being able to be successful with the right amount of work. Not the easiest path, not that. But if you're able to take a look at where you're heading and what you've done that's been good this year, which is something I'm really focusing on. And I'm going to take the rest of tonight as I'm working on some stuff and into tomorrow and just think about what I have done that was good. You shouldn't be ashamed of the really good things you did, no matter how small they are. Celebrate that. Be happy with that. I mean, yeah, there are times whenever life is just, pardon my French, shitty. It really is. And I get it. I really do. But I'm hoping that maybe this video will give you guys at least a little bit of hope, or, you know, some inspiration, some screwball way, because I'm not the best inspirational speaker. Really not. I wish I was. And I'm hoping that maybe this will help you guys kind of realign with what you're thinking. I know I've got acquaintances and friends that have told me some things, and I'll share a few of them with you without names. But I've had friends of mine that have said they've been burned out with the comic industry. And sometimes it can be so overwhelming because you're hoping and wishing that the people you meet and work with are going to be the best in the world. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. The way that I've managed to work through that is this. I will still find people that are supportive of what I do and that are genuinely interested in what I'm creating. And I just focus on that, because there's plenty of haters. There's plenty of people. I have gotten some horrible criticism over the last couple of years. Not as much this year, which is really nice. But I've had people tell me, like, that I'm ripping off other artists, that, I don't work fast enough. There's just any number of things like that. And the majority of it, even when it hurts, I kind of let it roll off my shoulder and I go, you know what? That's just your opinion. There's not much more you can do with that. It doesn't do any good to stay angry at anyone. Even if somebody was so upset at me being, a brown dude who's doing comics and like, you don't, dude, know your zone, stay in your lane. I don't really care, and that's probably easier to do because the older I'm getting, the less I give a damn. But the same thing goes with anyone trying to be creative online. There's something that has to be said about this. There are enough people out there that believe in this whole fake it till you make it thing. I have never believed in that. I never will. And I probably will never find gigantic success because of it. But I don't have to paint a picture of a perfect thing. I don't have to say every day's been perfect. But nor am I going to sit there and complain about it or whine about it or anything. Now, this is just me. And it took me a long time to get to this point, because I certainly did that early on when I first got it. I'm talking way back in the Friendster and MySpace days. And if there's any advice I would give on that, it would simply be this. You don't owe it to anyone to have to consistently crunch out artwork or updates or show just how freaking wonderful your life is. If your life is that gifted and wonderful and just amazing, fantastic, I'm glad somebody's having good luck. I will never hate on anyone for that. And I do appreciate, because there are some YouTubers out there that I'm not even sure how they do this. One of the guys I admire the most, Pixel Dan, I've talked about him in other videos. Now, he reviews toys. He's one of the most uplifting and upbeat people I've ever seen. There's another guy, Sean Canal. He does a lot of, like, how to get started with YouTube sort of videos and things. It is truly who they are, but they don't focus on the negative, and they try and run in a better, much more positive, upbeat vibe, because there's more than enough haters and people that are just willing to deconstruct everything out there. And all of you probably know what I'm talking about. Everything from this last Avengers movie to especially how the Star Wars trilogy ended has brought out haters of all kinds out there. And for both of those films, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to watch it. I don't care. And that has made me more happy than I don't know what. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. It has been a trip because I've managed to make more videos this year than I ever thought I would. It's so trippy to think that the next time that I sign back in, it's going to be 2020. I know that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But, dude, look, let's be honest. I was born in the 70s, so to say that, it's going to be 2020, that used to be the plot line for so much of the dystopian 1970s kind of like, science fiction from back then, like in the far-off year of 2020. I don't think this is when Buck Rogers happens, but there was other things like the Jetsons and stuff like that you'd see, and you'd be like, oh, there's going to be flying cars and all kinds of stuff like that, and Elon Musk is horribly behind on that. I'm just going to enjoy being able to say that I'm alive and well in 2020. And I hope to God I just didn't jinx myself with that. I probably did. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I will see you next year. So cheesy.